All right, guys. So chapter 10 covers health and stress. In this chapter, we're going to discuss the sources of stress, the health-stress connection, how we can cope with our stress, health and illness, and lifestyle and health changes. So with our stress, it's a physiological and psychological responses to any condition that threatens us or challenges us in a different way. So we do require to have an adaptation. So we go through this process, we learn how to handle it, and we adapt to that changes. A stressor is any stimulus or event capable of producing a physiological or emotional stress triggers. So this may be a change of job, which might be a really good thing. Buying a new house is super exciting but so stressful. Breakups and marriages, kids, sports, hobbies, anything you can think of can actually be a stressor. Life events approaches as a person's well-being can be threatened by major life changes. So it doesn't have to be something horrific or sad. This can be something happy, like having a new baby in the house. It's really, really exciting, and we really wanted our babies. But bringing a new baby into an environment is so stressful. But it's a good stress. Weddings, being married is super exciting as well, but it's really stressful to go through the whole process and have that commitment. So this includes events most people experience as well as very rare experiences and events. So your rares are going to war or combat. It's not a normal thing for everybody to partake in, or as rare as winning the lotto. With our social readjustment rating scale, the scale measures the impact of life events, so it ranges from the most to least stressful. So with your assignment, I want you to rate your stress on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being no stress at all, to 10 being holy cow, I cannot handle this world, I'm super, super stressed. And once you do write these down, tell me why your stress is at a certain level, or why it's not very stressful for you, and how you cope with your stress. So a lot of people run, they walk, they exercise, they listen to music, they surround themselves with certain family members or friends, or they can do a more of an unhealthy approach, which they can drink alcohol, they sometimes do drugs, or other silly things like having sex is a stress reliever for many. So with Holmes and Ray, they have their own type of scale that they range off of. So this scale values to 43 life events. So when you guys do this study, you might not even have encountered any of these things yet, but I want you to answer as honest as you possibly can. And the score ranges from 11 to 100. So the scores correlate with a variety of health indicators. A score over 300 means you have a 50% chance of becoming ill within the 2 years. So this doesn't mean that you might have like a heart attack or stroke or anything. That can be with coming down with the flu or a cold or something like that, so something minimal. There is a lot of criticism with the SRRS quiz scale. The scale assigns point values without accounting for how an individual perceives or copes with a particular stressor. So when I took this test several years ago, I was bringing home a new baby at that point. So I scored at a 540 on this test. So I have had a lot of stressful events occur with me in the past few years, but I have a better coping skills than a lot of other people do. So instead of dwelling on certain events that have occurred, I tackle it and I come up with a solution. So I adjust to that stressor. I don't allow it to take me down because you have to be a bigger person than that, and you need to learn how to cope and maintain. And yes, I ran a lot, I worked out a lot, but I mostly surrounded myself with my family. So even though I registered at a 540, I really didn't feel like my stress values was that high. So it wasn't really correlating to how I was actually feeling. So this is why we have a lot of criticism. So this is going to be the quiz that you're going to take. This will be actually on your assignment, so you can just go on in and click on that link. And I want you to post some discussions in that assignment. If you believe that your score is correct, if you have a really, really super high score, but you feel like, meh, I'm cool, I'm good. Why are you cool and you're good? How do you cope differently than others? Or why don't you think these events that you have marked yes on really correlate to your stress factors? Or if you received a 30 score, why is your stress so low? How do you maintain it? Okay, PTSD. This is your post-traumatic stress disorder. So this is prolonged or severe reactions to catastrophic events or severe chronic stress. We will see a lot of our war vets come back with PTSD. This can be sexual assault. This could be physical assault. This can be just a really traumatic event that you witnessed. It could be an accident. So effects can linger for years, especially with personal connections with that. So PTSD is very severe, and it can cause a lot of other issues coming back with that. So with your PTSD, we can have flashbacks, which actually brings that individual back into that same setting and they're reliving that moment. Nightmares, intrusive memories. They have survival guilt that, oh my gosh, I survived because I had to unfortunately kill this child that was maybe 12 years old that was trying to kill me. So we have survival guilt with that. I'm an adult, this is a child, but I had to do what I needed to do. So we have guilt with that one. Depression and alcoholism are more common in female survivors because they want to get rid of that pain, so they might turn to drugs or alcohol. Individuals who have PTSD are at higher risk in developing other psychological and medical issues throughout their lifespan. So this can be anxiety attacks, it can be claustrophobia, it can be everything, it can be depression, it can have a lot of psychological disorders comes with this, so it might cause you to actually go into a psychosis state. We have a lot of heart problems and strokes due to stresses, because what happens when we have a lot of stress, our chemicals in our body get thrown off kilter, so it can make other items be higher than our good items. We will also be watching a video on PTSD for Criminal Minds, so I will actually be posting that for you guys. Everyday stressors. We encounter stressors on a daily basis. It doesn't matter if they're good or they're bad. So our hassles, these are irritating demands that occur daily, may cause more stress than major life changes. So this could be as simple as stuck in traffic. It's annoying. Standing in a very long line with someone chewing behind you with your mouth open. That's one of my big pet peeves. Any event that is annoying or frustrating can be considered as a hassle. Your uplifts are positive experiences in life, may neutralize the effects of a hassle, and uplifts for some individuals may be stressors for others. So say having kids. To me, my kids are my uplifts, but to other people that don't have kids are like, oh my gosh, they'd be so stressful, I can't handle it. That is their hassle in life, is at the thought of having kids. So they're my uplifts, but it might be a hassle to somebody else. Think about an uplift that has better grades on a test. This may have offset one of the hassles of having to study for that quiz. Nobody likes to study. For making our choices, we have approach conflict, so having to choose between two equally desirable alternatives. So this is, say, your wedding cake shopping, and you have to try all these cakes. So eating chocolate cake or red velvet cake. These are very minor changes, very minor decisions. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick chocolate or you pick red velvet. Avoidance conflict, so having to choose between two equally undesirable alternatives. Avoid studying for your test, but at the same time, wanting to avoid failing the class. So we want to avoid, but we have to pick one. Approach avoidance conflicts. So the choice has to be both desirable and undesirable features. So wanting to go on vacation, but also not wanting to take everything out of your savings account for that vacation. You might have something on your test that makes you list the 9 variables. So we have 9 variables in work stressors. We have your job status, physical variables. So is it hard work? Is it in a noisy place? Is the temperature super high? Are you confined in a really small space? Clarity of job description and evaluation criteria. So what is actually your job? What are you supposed to be doing? Your workload, are you taking on so much because everybody else keeps canceling or calling out sick? Accountability, task variations, human contact, physical challenges, and your mental challenges. Okay, for your physiological of health stress connections, we have fight or flight responses. So this is the sympathetic nervous system and endocrine glands prepare the body to flight or flee. It's not flee. Oy. So this is when we're bringing it back to chapter 2 when we're talking about the sympathetic systems and your parasympathetic system. So with your fight or flight, these are biochemicals associated with fight or flight responses affect how the body actually functions. So the body pumps out large amounts of your neuropeptides. Why? So this makes your eyes dilate, your liver activate a little bit higher. So this reduces anxiety, but also constricts blood vessels, leaving vessels more vulnerable to that blockages. The fight or flight suppresses body's immune system, affecting white blood cells called lymphocytes. And that's when sometimes after we get done with a very stressful event, we just kind of crash. Or if you have a long period of that stressful event, you actually might become sick because of your white blood cells. Our general adaptation syndrome. So your most harmful effects of stress are due to prolonged secretion of your glucocorticoids. So this increases your heart rate, blood pressure, blood sugars, and gives you a burst of energy all of a sudden. So your fight or flight responses is seen in stage of alarm. So fight or flight responses is seen in stage of alarm. Whereas when our body begins to calm down, that is when our exhaustion does occur. So your 3 stages are alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. Okay, our coping strategies, your risk and resilience model. So risk and protective factors interact with produce or protect us from illnesses. So your coping strategies, efforts to deal with demands perceived as taxing or overwhelming. So with me, I go to the gym a lot. I work out and I just kind of work all that stress away. It helps me cope, it helps me be able to sleep, and it helps me be a nicer person on a daily basis. So your problem-focused coping response aimed at reducing, modifying, or eliminating the source of stress. Then we have emotion-focused coping, which is a reappraisal of a stressor to reduce its emotional impact. And a combination of both of these strategies is the best concept to actually have. If you're optimistic about an event that happens, even though it can be super, super hard and stressful, but if you have optimism, it helps reduce that stress factor and actually makes that stress factor making you a stronger individual because you're able to take it on. And optimism makes you sick or ill. They're saying that religious faith, so involvement in religion, has been associated with lower rates of cancer, heart diseases, and strokes. This is still a hypothesis. I have no clue if they've actually came to a final conclusion on this one. But it stated that if an individual has strong religious connections, they tend to live a healthier life and stay away from smoking, alcohol, and drugs, and seclusion. So we all know that all these things can make us unhealthy, causing us to have cancer, heart diseases, or strokes. So there might actually be a positive correlation between religious faith and less sickness. But this can also go with any types of groups that you may surround yourself with. All right, so as you might know, I do have a tendency to be a type A behavior, but it's okay. So type A behavior patterns has a time urgency. We sometimes are impatient, we're very competitive, and sometimes we can get a little hostile and angry if things don't go the way that we plan or want them to. But with our type A personalities, we have an increased risk of coronary heart disease because, again, we're always kind of on edge, and these chemicals can make its way in order to harm our hearts. Type B behavior, of course, have lower risk of coronary heart disease because they're more relaxed, easygoing approach with life without any urgency or really competitiveness. Your type D behavior pattern is emotional distress combined with tendency to suppress that negative emotions. So they internalize negative emotions and thoughts rather than actually bringing them out. And they are also associated with higher risk of coronary heart disease because they do internalize everything. You will be taking your personality test. This is on your discussion post, and it's part of your assignment for this lecture. I'm considered a type A. It's just how I am. I'm a bit high-strung. Okay, Cancer. Cancer stinks. We are going to talk about this one, and then we're going to end it and go on to part 2. So this is the second leading cause of death, collection of diseases rather than a single entity. So this is when your cells do not stop dividing as normal cells do. Normally our cells produce, divide, and die. They produce, they divide, and die. But instead, they produce, divide, and never die. So they keep on accumulating, causing tumors to actually occur, and this is why we have cancer. Okay, I'm going to end it right here. We're going to go on to slide 30 next. Bye.